This video will transform your understanding of non-duality's most misunderstood concept, free will, so that you can embody the true freedom that you are. Perhaps you've seen the three choices of beliefs that seem to be available to us when it comes to the topic of free will. The first choice is to take the view of the mainstream average Joe, that I, as an individual, have choices and I'm making decisions by thinking them through. But then you realize that must be a load of madness, because you wonder if that individual I controller really exists like people assume it does, because they don't want to feel like a powerless puppet, right? So you turn to a scientific view of the world, and you learn that everything is predetermined by the laws of physics and the laws of cause and effect. And so maybe there's no free will because everything is just a predetermined result of the Big Bang. But then, hold on, quantum physics comes along and says that there's a level of uncertainty and probability at the base level of reality that maybe we can affect. You hear about terms like the wave function collapse and quantum indeterminacy. But then you think, I'm probably not clever enough to understand all of this, and you start to suspect that the spiritual gurus mentioning quantum physics to justify their claims probably don't understand it either. And then there's non-duality. You zip around on non-duality YouTube, landing on the topic of free will, to hear that free will is an illusion and everything's just apparently happening, which might feel obviously right and intuitive at first. But perhaps you start to feel it maybe is a little bit simplistic and maybe it's lost its nuance. After all, it's an easy thing to say there's no free will and just chuckle at the silly notion of thinking that you have any control. And so you wonder also if this could get interpreted as, well, I don't have free will or control, so what's the point of desires and making decisions and taking any responsibility for my life? Because apparently I don't exist anyway. Are these non-duality guys even making any sense? Do they even have any responsibility to make any sense, since they believe they have no control and non-duality doesn't make any sense anyway, right? Free will, I would say, is the most misunderstood concept in non-duality, so let's get clear on it by taking a clear and honest look at our reality. If you believe I am the body, then from that level, there is no free will. The heart beats on its own, the lungs breathe on their own. The body is an appearance in consciousness. It appears that you can control it with the mind or something. It appears that you can do things by thinking about them. But hang on, that assumes that there's a controller in the mind and in the thinking. It appears that decisions come from the thinking mind, but if you look closely, there isn't actually any separate thinking entity there. Thoughts just appear spontaneously. I mean, go ahead and try and control when the next thought comes in and the content of the thought. I'm sure you already know it's a fruitless mission. In fact, if you look even more closely, you can see that the thought appears as consciousness. There isn't actually any separation between the thought and consciousness. It's just an appearance of consciousness, and it appears spontaneously, just as your heart beats and your appendix does, or whatever the hell your appendix does, which can't be that important, right? If they can just whip it out and you're fine. Or perhaps they'll discover it's an antenna that connects to the fifth dimension. But whatever dimension it connects to, we can know for certain that all these dimensions appear in the dream of consciousness. Because even a dream with 5, 6, or 111 dimensions appears within the consciousness of the dreamer, right? It's all a projection of consciousness. Just look at your own dreams. With the dream, it's not the dream character or the dream character's thoughts that has the free will, is it? Only you, the true you, the dreamer, the consciousness has the free will. And you can dream a new dream at any time because you're outside of the linear time of the dream. You're appearing to yourself as a linear time-based dream, but you're actually this eternal presence of consciousness that everything appears as. When you believe you're the dream character, you feel like you're making choices, but these choices are actually just a part of the dream's unfolding. The dream appears to progress linearly, one event after another, but it's actually just a projection on the screen of you, the consciousness. When you realize you're the dreamer, you realize you're not the dream character, and you're not even bound by the situation of the dream. It's possible for you to change the dream at any moment, and whatever happens in the dream, you can see it all as a play of appearances in your imagination. It's the same in the waking state. It just appears as more solid and consistent. But just as you're not just the dream character, you're the dreamer. You're not just the person you think you are. You're the consciousness as which this person appears. Just as the dream character's free will is an illusion, but you as the dreamer have the freedom to dream anything. The individual's free will is an illusion, but consciousness itself is inherently free. Just as you're not bound by the dream's timeline, consciousness isn't bound by physical time. It's the eternal presence as which all of time appears. So perhaps we can see now that if you believe I am this body, I am this mind, or I am this separate individual living in a separate world who's exerting my free will and control onto it, then there is no free will on that level. True free will is consciousness, the dreamer, and consciousness is everything. Consciousness is the one dreamer of all of our lives, and its will is always executed on. Consciousness, the absolute, can manifest anything because it is the one and only manifesting power. And this is hidden in plain sight in the Lord's Prayer as, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Heaven symbolizing the realm of pure consciousness, and earth the physical manifest world. Imaginal acts performed in heaven become manifest on earth. So a will that comes from the belief I am a separate limited person has no real power. A will that comes from consciousness is always fulfilled without fail. Thy will be done is a surrender of the individual's ego's desires and attachments to the greater will of the divine and the true self. It's an opening to the flow of life and to the will of your true self, infinite consciousness, this that's appearing right now. From this understanding, events aren't predetermined, they're preordained from a higher level outside of time. They're first conceived of in the realm of pure consciousness and then expressed as physical form, that which is seen and heard. But this is a second order reality. The primary reality is consciousness. Just like the forms in a dream are a second order reality, the primary reality is consciousness. Consciousness displays its own ideas and imaginations to itself, laid out in the appearance of a linear timeline, all happening on the screen of consciousness. But all of those ideas and imaginings are already present in consciousness, which transcends the time and space of the dream, and you are that consciousness in your essence. A great many people are completely lost in their own thought forms, not realizing their experience is a projection of their own consciousness filtered through the limiting beliefs of their mind. Now you might say, but if I am consciousness, and consciousness has free will to dream any dream, why can't I just fly or move the clouds with my mind? And it's a good question, because who doesn't want to fly or bend spoons like Neo in the Matrix or Uri Geller on a good day? You see, when we say you are consciousness, we're referring to your true fundamental nature. But in this waking dream of life, consciousness is playing a very specific game, the game of being human in a seemingly physical world. Just like in a night dream, where you might be bound by the rules of that dream, perhaps you can't fly in a particular dream, the waking dream also has its own set of rules or laws that consciousness has established for this particular experience. These rules, like gravity, physical limitations of the body, apparent cause and effect, and so on, are all part of the dream itself. They're not limitations on consciousness, but rather the parameters consciousness has set for this particular dream. It's important to understand that even the experience of separateness and limitation is an expression of the freedom of consciousness. The ego, the belief in separation, and the rules of the dream aren't a mistake. They're another way consciousness explores its infinite possibilities and appears to itself. But here's the fascinating part. As you awaken to your true nature as consciousness, you find that the rules of the dream become more flexible. I can't say that you'll suddenly levitate off the ground or use your appendix as a portal to the fifth dimension, but you do experience more of what might be called synchronicities and manifestations. You start to see that what's imagined in the realm of pure consciousness can actually happen. There is power in a clear intention and a vivid imaginal act, but that intention and imagination belongs to consciousness, not the separate individual. This is why when the belief in separation and limitation are let go of and you sink into a thoughtless space of pure consciousness, you appear to be able to manifest extremely unusual circumstances. Desires are an appearance of consciousness too, and they can be embraced. They just create suffering when we believe that we're a separate limited individual whose peace, happiness, or fulfillment is dependent on the fulfillment of the desire. These desires are personal and have a kind of inner tension around them. When desires arise on behalf of pure consciousness, with no personal attachment, they are always fulfilled. But there's no separate you who can force your way into that. It's more about the surrendering of the will of your limited small self over to the divine will of impersonal consciousness. Now you might wonder if the divine will of consciousness is what your individual self wants. After all, some people are experiencing terribly challenging situations like relationship breakdown, war, and even famine. That can't be what they want, right? The difficulty for the individual self is that it can't see the larger picture. It can't see that all these experiences are for the evolution of the soul and have a deeper meaning on a higher level. It doesn't justify any of the objectively heinous and terrible things that are happening in the world. And it doesn't make them right. It doesn't nullify the objective suffering that's clearly happening. But it does open us up to a broader perspective and the possibility that even things our mind can't understand or justify may have a deeper purpose on a higher level. However, on the flip side of the coin, the will of consciousness can align with the will of your individual self quite often, and more so when you relax deeper into your true nature as consciousness. The things you desire can manifest in miraculous ways, and in ways your individual mind could have never have imagined. Events and situations can manifest that are better and more desirable than your individual mind could ever dream up. Such is the power of surrender to the divine will of your true self, by recognizing your true self to be the consciousness as which everything appears and staying in that recognition. Rather than just saying there's no free will and no choice and no responsibility, you see that actually, in a way, there is only ultimate responsibility, that there is only self, that it all comes from within, and only true inner shifts do anything to change external reality. Many non-duality speakers say the simplistic trope, free will is an illusion. The free will of the limited individual self is an illusion. True free will belongs to consciousness, which is freedom. And besides, who am I to say you can't levitate, blast off into space, or cook a muffin with your mind? Who am I to say what's possible in this grand dream of consciousness? It can be realistic and practical, at the same time as saying that any of my assumptions could simply be a product of my own limiting beliefs. I guess it's up to you to see what's true for you. For inquiries about my one-to-one coaching program, go to speaktoalex.com, only for those serious about profound transformation. See you in the next video. Peace.